Hello and welcome to the Product Coach Podcast. Thank you for joining us on this journey to explore the domain of product management and becoming a successful product manager. You can get access to the latest articles and podcasts on productcoach.net. Episode 23, Building Products for the Future. There's a lot of thinking and literature on problem solving and looking at pain points. This is akin to reactive product management, where the product manager waits to be informed either by the end user or through their own probing. In our fast-paced digital world, how can a product manager stay relevant to customers and the business? Future-proofing and solving the problems of tomorrow requires a different kind of thinking. One has to start by getting into a state of a deep workflow of carefully analyzing and visualizing how the next couple of years will shape up. While there is no crystal ball for accuracy, there are cues which can be taken into consideration to form a view of where society and business is heading. To have confidence in building such foresight, I am going to go back in time to narrate a story which will illustrate how technology changes through the passage of time have been a key driver in lifting people, businesses, and even nations out of a state of stagnation to a state of thriving. Years ago, I visited a client who was in an emerging country. I was there for a few short days. At that time, critical meetings had to be done face-to-face. Broadband internet was emerging, and speeds were hardly at half a megabyte. And there was hardly any voice-over internet protocol. We are talking about pre-Skype days and primitive cellular coverage. Taking a red eye to the destination, I knew I wasn't going to get much of a wink. I had my trusty ThinkPad, and it gave me comfort that I could just focus at the tasks on hand on location and not be distracted with work emails, as the iPass internet roaming service was limited, expensive, and not fast enough to sync my corporate email. As I arrived into the client's office, it was very clear that this was going to be a very different experience. The monsoons had ravaged the place. There was mud everywhere on the ground floor and a sense of dampness. As I made my way up to the lobby and registered myself, I soon realized that only management staff and visitors were allowed to take the elevator up. I got off on one of the higher floors and entered the main passageway. The first thing I saw was a room marked the computer room. I thought that's where the telecommunications and the computer hub for the floor was located. Finally arriving at the corner wing office, where the head of international partnerships was having his morning meeting. Seeing the gleam in his eyes, he shooed away his team and gave me a warm handshake. We have spoken many times and exchanged emails. This was, however, our first meeting in person. There is so much we learn and understand from each other when we meet each other in person. Suddenly the dots connect. The behavioral personalities, which have been interpreted loosely, now has a face, and it gives the relationship another level of elevated trust. International business travel 20 years ago was a big deal. Companies didn't just send anyone out to meet and greet. Even employees had concerns about traveling to unfamiliar cities. Many countries still required visas, ticket bookings in advance, invitation letters from the host country. Hotels sometimes required US dollar cash payments. You even needed to declare the computer at customs and let them know you were there for work purposes. As we warmly reciprocated our best wishes to each other and sat down, we talked a bit of our personal lives, where we came from, our families, where we studied, how long we have been with our organizations. Sipping on the local coffee, which was sweet and sugary, we slowly moved into reaffirming the objective of the visit and recapped what needed to be achieved during the trip. The secretary was ushered in to take notes and arrange all the meetings. I noticed that my host didn't take notes, nor was there a computer on his table or a typewriter. Marvelous, the power of delegation. In reality, it was probably cheaper to hire someone than to buy and maintain a computer. Paper notes and typewritten memos seemed to be prevalent on the floor. As I walked around, I came to the conclusion that the computer room was the only place on the floor where there were computers. Whoever needed to use the computer would book in a slot. The finance folks were the only ones who had their own desktop setup and printer. So fast forwarding to the present, a lot has changed, but what has changed, and how has that change come about? There have been many changes initiated by the private and the public sector, either through capital investment or government policy, which have contributed to the prosperity of nations and its people. Some of the themes which are relatable to most of us are that firstly, faster internet propelled the outsourcing from the west to the east. India and the Philippines, for example, benefited greatly from this outsourcing. All of us are familiar with the anecdotes on call centers and back office processing centers which have been set up. Mobile telecommunication gave birth to the mobile-first generation. Developing countries leapfrogged into the mobile space, bypassing the desktop generation. This put the cell phone in the hands of billions around the world. Migration of labor from impoverished nations to wealthy ones for construction, oil and gas, and domestic help has been significant in scale. The international diaspora has led to the transformation of the Hawala business to a regulated money transfer and remittance. Automation and access to cheap labor gave China an edge in contract manufacturing. The world's manufacturing now has major components sourced from China, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Thailand. Online marketplaces brought choices and price comparison to the click of a mouse. Increased competition, fair prices, and value-added services gave the consumer the power. Merchants now had to sell hard to get the attention of the buyers. Air travel became accessible and cheaper. International business became more connected. Tourism flourished. Students studied overseas. Data became the new oil. A business which did not analyze its data was setting itself up for failure. Customer behavior and the spend propensity are intertwined, and data mining reveals insights which are not detectable by the naked eye. People say that business opportunities have dried up and it's hard to be an entrepreneur these days. Looking at the above 7 examples of growth and prosperity, it's far from the truth. There are ample opportunities to build new products. You just need to invest in understanding where society is heading and what are the pillars which are leading that transformation. Feed these insights into a real-world problem or opportunity statement to then shortlist where the future is heading. Product managers from yesteryear have shaped the future by building products in anticipation of certain outlooks which they had formed. Some would have got it right and many would have failed in their attempts. Betting on technology should not be the goal of a product manager. It's betting on the use case that a particular problem can be solved if the pieces all come together is what the bet should be made on. A great way to illustrate is to think of CDMA versus GSM or Betamax versus VHS. The latter one's won. He who invests in technology invests into the future as it gives them the ability to pivot and repurpose. It gives the firm a better chance of solving tomorrow's problem. It's been over 20 years since I last met my dear client. Well, we no longer work for the same organizations. However, I do have him on my LinkedIn. This alone tells me that his life has changed, and I would like to think that if I visited him today, he would be on his tablet or computer, making his own notes, flipping through his mobile phone, and having Zoom meetings regularly. As a consumer, I myself could not have foreseen to the extent of how our world would dramatically change. There was a time when I was using a Palm Pilot, and that was a great personal digital assistant, and today there are many smartphones to choose from. Never could I have thought that we would be immersed in this digital experience which we have today, where we can use apps like Uber and Amazon and have up-to-the-minute tracking on demand and in real time. But someone else did have this vision for the future. There are product managers and entrepreneurs who knew that the future could look like what it is today and invested to make it happen. These individuals trusted their crystal ball and took a chance to solve the problems of tomorrow which no one thought existed. Did we really need an app to tell us where the taxi was 10 years ago? To see into the future, you need to be deliberate about it. Think about how the future narrative of business will change in the next 5 years, and how we must as product managers position ourselves for our own career growth, and how we need to change the way we think and empower ourselves to continuously adapt. Nothing lasts forever. We all know that. Business models will change. Technology and innovation affects us in a very personal way. How we are touched by technology in our personal lives eventually morphs itself into business. We expect business solutions to reach that same level of interactivity and immersion. The way we touch technology is getting more immersive. How will augmented reality and virtual reality shape our living dimension? I can't get my grips around this. I wait for the day when online commerce transcends into AR and VR as a mainstream way of businesses to engage their customers. Many product managers are not ready to delve into such use cases and are still grappling with solving today's problems with today's technology. The products of the future will be smart, connected, decentralized, and immersive. Think about your products today and overlay these concepts on them to get started on the journey of defining what tomorrow could look like. If you're open to thinking about the future, you will realize that the universe gives you small signals to help you discover what the future holds. These signals are small dots which you need to glean on and then connect them together ever so intelligently. You will need to research, understand, and connect to appreciate the potential and inertia of change which is about to happen. Technology leaders will tell you that a product manager should not be thinking about the technology stack and they should focus on the requirements. I beg to differ. Product managers are at the intersection of technology, business, and customers. We have the right to influence the technology stack to help us with solving the problems of tomorrow. It's only when we think about the future with deep focus will we actually arrive at the possibilities. If we limit our creativity and innovation to the problem statements that are driven from the events and the systems that exist today, then we are not doing justice to our roles as product managers. We must ask ourselves, what will the problems of tomorrow be? Thank you for listening to the Product Coach podcast. Do subscribe and visit us on productcoach.net for future articles and updates.